everybody, welcome to my channel. We are going to be discussing my absolute favorite books of all time in this video today. These can be 4 or 5-star books to me. They're just considered books that I really resonate with, or that I distinctly remember and or think of a lot. So sometimes something from another book will remind me of something from one of these books, or something along those lines. Just a book that I really remember, that is very memorable to me, and that I think about quite frequently. So let's go ahead and get started. I've got 3 book stacks. I don't know if I can hold them all up. This is gonna be a challenge. Okay, so this is not stack number 1. This is like stack 1 and 2. So this is part of it, and then let's see if we can do it. Ooh. Ah! My dog is concerned. My dog is concerned. Here she comes. Excuse me, ma'am. Thank you. These are all of the books that I deem favorites, or books that I really, really love, that I have rated either 4 or 5 stars and think about on a fairly regular basis. So, hey, you can see it all. These are all my books, and let's get into it. Let's go ahead and get started. The first few books are actually in a series. So this is the Good Girls Guide to Murder trilogy. I believe I rated only this one 5 stars right here, and these 2 were 4s. However, if I were to reevaluate, I think both the first and the second book would be 5 stars for me. I really, really loved these. I think the second one was my favorite out of all 3. They're super thin and really, really easy to get into, and I am a sucker for murder mysteries, so I absolutely loved these. The final book kind of fell a little bit flat for me. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was the ending, which that's gonna be controversial because I know a lot of people love this book. But yeah, I don't know if it was the ending or what. It was also extremely intense once you got to this book. Like, I was like on edge. Now, saying that this one wasn't my favorite, it was still a 4-star read. Trust me. It was just that it wasn't as much the vibes of these ones necessarily, and I really, really liked these both. We follow essentially a teenage detective, and she's trying to solve a murder that happened, I believe it was 5 years before, for a either school project or a senior capstone. So this is really great. I highly recommend this series. I really loved it. Next, we have Bee Tree by Emily Henry. I love this book. It is so good, and I absolutely love Emily Henry as an author. She has definitely become an auto-buy author for me. I'm not sure. I think this one's my favorite. I think this one's my favorite, like out of all the books that I've read that she's written. I just loved it. I loved it so, so, so much. And the vibes are great. They're both writers. It is a romance that almost feels at times like the romance is on the back burner, because the people themselves are working on themselves for so much of the book that it feels like you're not necessarily 100% focused on the romance, which I really like. And I think Emily Henry does that with a lot of her books. So I really enjoyed that. Highly recommend. Okay, so speaking of Emily Henry, this is another one of her books that I absolutely loved. I read this in April. This is the very first, this book and a TJ Klune book both came out in end of April. And these 2 books were the first books that I genuinely went to a Barnes & Noble on their release date and picked them up. Sadly, I didn't like the TJ Klune book as much as I was hoping, because I love TJ Klune. However, this one met every expectation I could have ever hoped for. I loved this book. It is super, super cozy. It is a lakeside, almost like beach house, but with a bunch of friends that have gone there since college, and it is so fun. But yeah, it's got a really great underlying message that I really, really loved and connected with, so I highly recommend this one too. And speaking of TJ Klune, this is one of the very first books that got me back into reading. I was in a situation, as most teenagers were, ever since I learned to read, I absolutely loved it. And all the way through middle school, and then I got to high school and it was like, I'm too cool to read. I don't have time to read. I want to hang out with friends and do anything but read. But then I got to college and oddly enough, got really, really into reading again, I think my junior year of college. That sounds right. I think that's right. When my now husband told me that I desperately needed to read the Percy Jackson series because I didn't read it when I was younger. And thanks to him and demanding that I read that series, I got back into reading, which is really, really wonderful. And it is like one of my passions now. So you all can thank him for that. But this book got me into my own reading. Like I'm talking, I love this author. I auto-bought his very most recent book. I loved 2 out of the 3 books that I read by him. This one being my absolute favorite. Like I'm talking, the vibes in this are immaculate. It's cozy, it's light fantasy, it's found family, it's everything I think I need in a book, and I loved it. So out of honestly all of the books, this is probably the one I would recommend the most. This is the book that I buy for people to be like, read this. Happy birthday, Merry Christmas, whatever, read this. But also, I just recommend it to everybody. I've gotten so many people to buy this book. I love it. Love, love, love. Okay, and then the next one I actually read a couple of weeks ago, I think, is when I finished it. But it is None Shall Sleep by Ellie Marney. And I really, really love this book. The murder mystery vibes in this are so good. If you have seen and or loved the movie, I almost said The Shining. This is not The Shining. Silence of the Lambs. If you have seen and or loved that movie, this gives similar vibes, but not the same plot, is all I can describe it as. So it's very like FBI trainee, kids still in college, like trying to help out with a case type of thing. Loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it. And I really liked the way it ended because it wasn't unrealistic. So yes, loved it. So the very first book in this series is the one that I gave a 5-star. This is the one that I think about, not necessarily on a regular basis, but just the vibes and the coziness of it is something that I really, really loved. So that's I keep wanting to say Rainbow Rowell, it's not Rainbow Rowell. Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. So this is another academic focused book. They're at like a boarding school, but it is magical, which I love magical vibes. This would be a really fun book to read in the fall, I think. Just boarding schools and magical realism, not magical realism, magic in general gives me fall vibes. I don't know, maybe it's like the witchiness. There's no witches in this, I don't think. Not 100% sure. I read this a very long time ago. Anyway, loved this book. This is the first in a trilogy, as far as I know. And there are I have the other 2. This is the second one. Also really, really loved this one. Loved the vibes of this one. Loved the adventures they go on in this one. This one fell flat for me. So it is really only included just because I talk about the first book and I want to talk about the rest of them. I DNF'd this about halfway through, I think. And I was sad about it. I think it just took too long for it to pick up for me, and I just needed a little bit more, and it wasn't a give it to me. So the first 2 books are fantastic, and sadly the last book, I mean, it's the last in a series, so there's gotta be some build up, some explanation. It's a little bit longer of a book. So I feel like if you gave it like all of your attention and really read through it, you could really love it, and I'm willing to reread it. It's just at the time, it just wasn't picking up enough for me. So, highly recommend this series, and maybe just like brace yourself. This is gonna take a little while to get into. Next, we have a book that I read for my book club with a couple of my friends that I have, and this is the one and only book I have ever annotated, which I find very interesting, and I think says a lot about the book. Oh my god, just take it in. Just let it be. Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan. I mean, they're cut up sticky notes. They're not even actual tabs. It's not that cute. However, I couldn't stop. There were quotes in here that I would like, my heart would crack. Like literally I could feel like a little piece of my heart be like, ow. I couldn't handle it. It was so beautiful. Their relationship is so amazing. The way they grow together, they get stronger together. I love this book. I highly recommend this if you have not read it. It is so good. It's so heartwarming by the end, and just everything is just Archer Hale. Their relationship is everything, absolutely everything. Like these people, if you've ever seen those videos, it's like, do I think these people would actually be together in real life? Like if this weren't a book, these people would be together, like in every lifetime. Yes, please read this book. It's phenomenal. Okay, we are switching gears very much so. I just give you a sneak peek of it. Okay, we have My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. This book, oh my god, I read this on my honeymoon. It was October. It was very fall vibes. We were in Salem. This is everything. You need to read this book in fall. You need to read it in fall, or when it's like really, really rainy outside. Oh my gosh, 10 out of 10, 5 stars. This was everything. I've never read a book like it ever in my entire life. Never read a book like this. But it was so phenomenal. Like, I can't get over it. It's so good. I would reread this in a heartbeat, and I probably will. Now that I think about it, I probably will reread this. It's about 2 best friends in the 70s to 80s, and they just, like, the vibes in the beginning are so good, but I mean, as the title says, something goes wrong. And I've never read anything paranormal or horror or exorcism or anything like that, and it was perfect. And I don't like horror, so that's saying a lot. So if you don't like horror and you don't like scary, this book is still really, really good. It's just like creepy, kind of gross at times because exorcisms are not cute. I just really recommend this. I think everyone should read this, except for maybe 90-year-old grandmas, because they might get spooked. I don't know, my grandma is kind of a badass, so maybe not. Yes, highly recommend. Read this book. My stack behind me is growing. Or beside me, sorry. Okay, and this is our last set of books, and it is a series. This is the Truly Devious series. So this is the main trilogy. These 3 follow the same storyline, solving the same murder. And I must have a thing for academic, murder mystery, teenage detective, something, because that's what this is. These are high school students that are all living at a boarding school that is very prestigious, and it is very hard to get into. So you have to do an admissions essay, do all this stuff, but you have to do it in a way where it shows what you want to specialize in, which is really cool. So our main character actually wants to specialize in the murder that happened, I think it was like 50 years beforehand, or something along those lines. Might have even been in the 20s. I'm not sure. But that's what she wants to specialize in, and she writes an entrance essay about it, not thinking she's gonna get in, but she does. And it is phenomenal. I love this. I love this. Read this in the fall also. The academic vibes, it's not dark academia, but just the vibes. The vibes are fall. I highly recommend this, and the mystery in it is so good too. And then the 4th book that I was holding up with it is kind of like a extended book, not necessarily extended. This is in the summertime when they're not at the boarding school, and there's like a summer camp murder mystery that happens, and I love it. It's so good. I would say it's definitely not as good as the main trilogy, because I mean the main trilogy is amazing, but this one is really, really, really good, and I loved it so much. So I highly recommend this book. All by Maureen Johnson, by the way, which I didn't say. And I hadn't read any Maureen Johnson books before this. And I really loved it. There's also a 5th book that I cannot remember. Let me go grab it. This is the 5th book. It's called 9 Liars. This one I think is completely different. You can tell I didn't love it as much. They Study Abroad, which I think is really fun and a different environment to be in for this series, but I just didn't love it as much, and it was okay. I think I would probably give this like a 3 stars if that's not what I rated it. Does anybody else do that? Like in the moment you're like, book was pretty good, I'll give it a 4 stars. And then after the fact, I'm like, no, that was definitely not 4 stars. This was a 3-star book. So if I rated this 4 stars, it's meant to be 3. Yeah, not as memorable, but all the other books, 10 out of 10. So good. And I actually saw another book on my bookshelf that I completely forgot about. This book stack is scaring me. I don't know if you can see that. That I also read for my book club. This is Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. Oh my God. This is like romance. Like, I'm talking, this isn't a typical romance that I would read because I love Emily Henry's type of romance where it's very, romance is almost secondhand or like not the main plot. It is, but it feels like it's not. This is the romance is the main plot. But the ending, I was losing it, okay? That ending was so good. Also, the vibes of the entire storyline and the setting and the book and just everything was so good. And it's past and present, which I'm starting to really love, that kind of format of a book. This was so good. And the ending was phenomenal. I highly recommend this book if you are wanting a heartwarming romance that's got a few twists in it that I was really not expecting how big the plot twists were gonna be. So I really recommend this book as well. So that is all my books. I don't know if I want to pick this up because I feel like it's just, oh, this is a bad idea. Let's see if we can just scooch it over. So these are all my books. You can see all of them, that's great. These are all my books that I have really, really loved or are a part of a series that I wanted to talk about. These are the books or the genres that I tend to reach for. As you could tell, there's a lot of murder mystery, a lot of suspense suspense books, and detective books, with quite a few romances thrown in there. So I really, really hope you enjoyed this video. Let me put my books down because it's gonna fall over. Okay, I'm gonna clean those up. But I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you got some great book recommendations from me in this video. I'm gonna go clean up all these books and hopefully remember where they all go on my bookshelves. I hope you have a wonderful day wherever you are, and I'll see you later. Bye.